When we talk about rebuilding cities for the future, infrastructure plays an important part. And in Minnesota, an engineer says we should rethink how we build streets and roads.
As a human walking in this space, it's terrifying because you have vehicles going by at really high speeds, like mere feet away.
Charles Marone is showing me around his hometown of Brainerd, a small city of about 14,000 in central Minnesota. But this stretch of Washington Street with its speeding cars, chain stores, and restaurants could be anywhere.
It just winds up to be like the typical nasty American environment.
Marone once designed roads just like this during his nearly 2 decades as a civil engineer and land use planner. But he gradually came to believe that what he was doing was all wrong.
I became, in a sense, kind of like a heretic inside the profession, saying, like, the stuff we're building doesn't work.
Marone left engineering and started the advocacy group Strong Towns in 2009. He's written 2 books so far, hosts a podcast, and tours the country giving talks about better ways to build cities.
Where is the wealth? Where's the most productive parts of the city?
One of the things you'll often hear Marone railing against is strips like this, and he's coined a term for them. He calls them stroads.
A stroad is this street-road hybrid. It tries to be both a street and a road. A street is a platform for building community wealth. There's buildings, there's people, there's commerce. This is a space where humans can be comfortable in. A road's a high-speed connection between 2 places.
Like a highway.
It's literally like, how do we get from this space to this space in the quickest, most efficient way? A stroad, we call this the futon of transportation. When you think of a futon as being an uncomfortable couch that makes into an uncomfortable bed, a stroad tries to do 2 things at once and it fails at both.
This stroad is trying to accommodate people on foot like a street, but it also has cars traveling at very high speeds because, Marone says, it was designed like a highway. The lanes are wide, and so are the shoulders. The corners and curves are sweeping, so drivers don't need to slow down much. And the sides of the roads have been cleared of obstructions like trees.
Drivers respond to that by speeding up. And let's be clear, this is not like reckless drivers respond by speeding up. This is all drivers.
The Stroad's designers put in features for people on foot, in wheelchairs, and on bikes, but they don't make a lot of sense. First, the crosswalks are about a half-mile apart.
They're expecting somebody to walk all the way up there, or all the way down there to get across the street.
Right.
How likely is that?
It's not likely at all. No one would do that.
Case in point, this guy who dashed across 5 lanes of traffic right in front of us.
You're just watching like a typical crossing.
Rather than risk our lives, we headed to the traffic light. But we had to get across streets that didn't have any crosswalks.
There's no crosswalk here, and if you talk to the designers, they will actually say, well, we don't want to encourage people to cross.
But how am I supposed to get to the crosswalk up there?
It's not contemplated.
And when we finally got to the signal, Marone explained that the huge light poles were designed to bend and fall if hit by a car.
So you with me? We're trying really hard to protect the driver. But we also have you stand right here next to this pole and ask for permission to cross the street.
Yeah, no, this is like the worst place to be.
We met Brainerd local Kendra Korsgaard waiting to cross. She has epilepsy and doesn't qualify for a driver's license. So she gets around town on foot, by bike, and on this small electric scooter.
I got hit right over here by Walgreens. And as I was walking this way, the dude came flying through the intersection, and I literally went like this on his car, and he said, I have the right of way.
Korsgaard's also been struck while riding her bike, but luckily wasn't hurt.
Stroads tend to have the highest rate of accidents, the highest rate of crashes, the highest rate of fatalities.
And those fatalities are surging. In 2021, pedestrian deaths in the U.S. hit a 40-year high, rising to nearly 7,500. Nearly 1,000 bicyclists died the same year.
Why do we keep building places like this?
It's the million-dollar question. I think the easy answer is that this is the model we have.
That model, Marone says, first came to be after World War II, as wartime industries were shutting down and the nation feared falling into another Great Depression.
What happened is we took our cities and we turned them into machines of growth. And we said, we can jumpstart American prosperity by building interstates, by subsidizing housing, by creating the suburbs, and by growing our cities in this horizontal fashion.
New highway design standards were created and wound up being the design standards for all new streets.
It was the application of highway standards to a neighborhood. And we rolled out this machine across the continent, and we built this new version of America. And that version of America became, in many ways, our national identity.
This sprawl, Marone argues, has left us with serious liabilities. Building Stroads is expensive. All the pavement, lights, sidewalks, pipes, and storm drains cost millions of tax dollars. But one block might only contain a couple of stores and parking lots, which Marone contends won't generate anywhere near enough tax revenue to pay for future repairs and maintenance.
We see across the country today local government debt levels that are extraordinarily high and massive backlogs of infrastructure maintenance. All these roads we have to fix, all these sidewalks we have to fix, without the tax base or the capacity to do it.
A more productive way to build, Marone says, looks like this. Streets, where development is compact, meaning less infrastructure spending and upkeep per building. On a single block, there could be a dozen locally owned businesses, all paying taxes and providing jobs.
This little 4-block area here is the most financially productive part of the entire county.
It also just feels more safe and appealing.
The environment's just slower. It's less intense, right? And it's not that there's less activity. We actually see more people here, more stuff going on than we did there. It's just not of the kinetic automobile variety.
Why is traffic going slower here?
The geometry of the space doesn't allow you to go fast. The lanes are narrow, they're tight, the curb radiuses are smaller. There's stop signs quite frequently, so you get to the end of the block, you have to stop. There's a deferral here from the automobile perspective to people in this space.
So could we use some of these street design ideas to improve Stroads? Marone says, sure, tightening up lanes and corners and adding compact roundabouts can help prevent cars from speeding, but none of that would address the bigger problem. And this is what Marone is trying to change.
We have invested 70 plus years in a development model that is a dead end. I think then the question becomes, what do we do now? And I just start with the notion that we don't need any more highway lanes. We don't need to build any more infrastructure. What we need is a national program, and this needs to start from the bottom up. It needs to start at cities. A national program to make better use of the investments we've already made. We have to start moving our neighborhoods from being centered around getting automobiles through quickly to creating place for people to be in.